In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, June is here. Half of the year has already gone. Let me fix this. How is your 2022 going? My business partner was saying to me yesterday in the elevator that as soon as the mask mandates have gone, it's like COVID never existed. And it's true, it feels like that. The last 2 years just feel like a dream, and we've awoken from it, and now we've all forgotten about it. Everybody was celebrating and singing and eating and everything like it was nothing. Like the last 2 years meant nothing. That's how resilient the human being is, but that's also how forgetful the human being is. In fact, we know we've heard this quote all the time. I think it's ascribed to Winston Churchill. Uh, those who don't remember history are condemned to repeat it. Uh, Something along those lines. But I heard a better quote, and I think it was Thomas Aquinas, or was it Aristotle, or was it Voltaire? It was one of the big few. I can quickly look it up actually. The only thing we learn from history is that yeah, it was Hegel. All right, it was even bigger than most of them. The only thing that we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history. And I la 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 la. Can you hear me? Yeah, now it's working, right? It's working now, isn't it? Let's see if the mic needs to be edited. No, the mic seems fine. Yep, I think I think you can hear me now. Right. Blah blah blah. Okay. I don't know what happened. Anyway, I forgot my train of thought. Yeah, Hegel says the only thing we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history, and the last few weeks since the masks have been removed in Montreal actually feels like that. It actually feels like we haven't learned anything. Everything's back to normal. Some people carry the hand sanitizer with them, but most of all, nothing. I still carry my mask because in Montreal, on the buses and the subway, um, and in public transport, you have to wear the mask. In airplanes as well. So I carry a mask in my pocket all the time. But other than that, things are just back to how they used to be. So yeah, today we are talking about chapter 32, which is the backbiter, or Surah Humaza. As you can see now, Restream has a new option. You can broadcast like a ticker at the bottom, like it's a stock market video. So I'm doing that too. Um, so before I dive into this chapter, it's a very small chapter. I want to talk about values and norms. Backbiting or slandering or spreading rumors or gossiping is universally considered something evil and dangerous in every religion. In Islam, as you know, as many of you know, in Islam, alcohol is prohibited. So you can't drink alcohol in any shape or form. If you're sitting in a group with people and somebody offers you a drink, hey, here's a scotch, you would say, no, I'm a Muslim. No, thank you so much, but no. Um, and the more they offer, the more you'll refuse. It wouldn't be, all right, fine, I'll just try it. Of course, there are the odd bad apples, but on a whole, most Muslims would tell you that no, no matter how much somebody convinces me to have a sip of alcohol, I wouldn't do it. Same goes for any other thing that has been banned. Let's say it's a plate of pork, plate, platter, whatever. And they say, hey, here's some bacon, here's some pork, try some. You're like, no, I'm good. Really, I'm good. And they're like, no, it's very tasty. And you'd say, I'm sure it's the most delicious thing in the world. I can't eat it because I'm a Muslim. Fair enough. So these are two things that are strongly prohibited in Islam. And most Muslims would say, you know what? No, I'm fine without it. I'm not going to indulge. Backbiting, slandering, gossiping is an evil that is even more dangerous because unwittingly you can get sucked into it. And I'll get to why it's considered evil, or is it? You're sitting in a group of friends and somebody says, well, you know, John is a liar. And you say, oh, okay. And you pay it no mind. And then they say, John's been lying a lot. He's been lying on his timesheets. Okay. You still don't contribute. Remember when that happened? John lied to you then. And you'd be like, really? Maybe he is a liar. And then you're part of the problem. You're part of it. You're part of the conversation. You're part of the backbiting. You're part of the rumor and the gossip. You're part of it. Just by saying, really? Wow. It takes immense amount of self-control, reflexivity, and self-awareness to constantly check yourself and say, I'm not going to say anything negative about anyone else. It's very, very difficult. This chapter touches upon that evil. Now, in Islam, and as far as I know, in all religions, backbiting or slandering or gossiping about people is considered a horrendous evil. And I think one of the reasons is because of what I mentioned. You don't realize and you start doing it. A, but also its limits are unclear. For example, if you're drinking alcohol, you can drink your body weight, you can drink a bit more, and then you pass out. There's a limit. You can't keep on drinking like an elephant. Same goes to pork. If you are eating bacon or pork, which is prohibited in Islam, and you keep eating it, there will be a time where you'll say, you know what, I can't take another bite. If you give me another, I'll throw up. But with this, there's no limit. You don't go at 10 p.m., you know what, it's been 6 hours since I've been gossiping about John, and now I have to stop. My quota for today is complete. You can't do that. There's no limit to it. So that's one of the reasons why right after chapter on the resurrection, right after the chapter on the striking hour, the resurrection, this is mentioned. In terms of placement, this chapter is near the last third of the last section of the Quran. It starts with Surah Al-Zalzal, which I think means the earthquake, but I would be wrong. I could be wrong. And then it goes on to talk about the day of judgment and afterlife and all those things. And then the last 10 chapters of the Quran are most of which we've covered already. So this is arranged over there. And so when children start learning the Quran or start reading the Quran, they start from the end. We've discussed this before. So near the end of the Quran are a lot of small chapters, 3 verse, 5 verse, 4 verse chapters in the end. This is 9 verses, around 9 verses only. So children would read this before they read the very long ones, and it would be easier to understand. And in this one, two things have been done. A scene of hell has been painted, which has not really been painted in this light before, and also children or whoever's reading the chapter has been introduced to the idea of backbiting, slandering, gossiping about other people. Why is it wrong? So, Western diplomacy is predicated on the idea of not telling the complete truth to the person you are dealing with. It is strategic, it is the art of war, and that is why Western diplomacy, particularly British diplomacy, has survived for quite a long time. Oh, my hair's doing all sorts of things today. It's survived for all sorts of time because you would feel something about somebody or believe something about somebody, but you wouldn't say it to them. You'd be diplomatic and polite and you'd be kind, but then you'd go back to your group of friends or people. And if you want to destroy the other person, you'd destroy them. That's how the Cold War was. There was no nuclear fight happening. There were missiles in Cuba and missiles in Turkey, and there were proxy wars happening, but there was no America versus Russia. And when they would meet nicely, like, how are you? How wonderful. It's the same today. Modi may disagree vehemently with Boris Johnson on something, but they'd meet and they're like, how nice, how wonderful to see you. And then when they go away, they say, oh, we need to destroy the economy. We need to destroy XYZ. That is diplomacy. It is predicated on the idea of holding back your opinions about someone, holding back how you feel, holding back everything that you believe to be right or correct, and putting on a front. That's politics. And let me ask you, how many of you really love politics? I love politics because I want to be a politician. But the facade, the acting, the the theatrics of politics, do you really like that? Because this presentation is part of that. That's why talking behind someone's back or saying things that you will not say to their face is problematic, not because you need to be courageous and learn how to insult people. No. But if you are feeling something or thinking something that you can't express to the other person honestly, respectfully, then maybe that thing you're feeling is revealing something inside you. Imagine I have a friend, and shout out to my great friend Theo Cobolio, because he's running a long race tomorrow and he is fit, and he is my inspiration to run better and run longer and faster. And I love him and I respect him. But I am envious beyond belief when it comes to how energetic and fit he is and how focused he is when he runs. He's a really good runner. And I hope, Theo, you do really well tomorrow. I pray for you. And I'm reading the Quran and I'm going to pray before I start translating that Theo does really well tomorrow. It's a big race tomorrow. And I'm envious of him. Um, but every time I see him share a story or an image of it, I write below, oh, I hate you. Oh, I wish I could do this. And every time I meet him, I tell him, one day I'm going to be in the same league as you. You'll be running a kilometer ahead of me, but I'll still be able to see you and I'll catch up. Because of that, for the last 2 weeks, I've been running too. I ran this morning for about an hour. And it's because he's inspired me. But the thing that I was feeling, the envy, the jealousy, the inadequacy of my physical competence, I revealed it to him. I shared it with him and I said, I want to be where you are. I want to do it. And he was kind and generous and supportive. And he said, download this app, do this run, breathe like this, just start running. And he gave like 15 points of advice, which I've started using. And I'm running. And I'm grateful to him. Imagine if I had gone to my friend and said, Theo thinks he's so fit. He's not fit. He has free time. He's this, he's that. Therefore, he's able to run. If I had all of that, I'd be able to run too. Look at what it's doing to me. Look at what it's revealing inside of me. Now, the United States particularly, but also a bit of the UK, makes a great amount of money through the housewives of this or the football wives of that, or selling Sunset or whatever, all these shows. And in England, it's Made in Chelsea, or The Only Way is Essex, and some other ones, where people are just gossiping and talking behind others, and then they come face to face and they say, well, you said this about me. Oh, who told you? Well, she told you. Hey, that was in confidence. No, you know it happens all the time, and it's good money because it's dramatic trash television, and we watch them and we say, wow, haha, that's so much fun. But we do it too. Every single human being does it. And 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 the and the dangers are endless, because that envy that I'm talking about, that's just one example. It could be 10 other things that you feel about someone else, and you feel, oh, I can't say it to them. But maybe think about this. If you can't say something to someone respectfully, with sincerity and honesty, maybe it's the social contract. For example, I can't tell my parents to get lost. I can't. It's respect, and it's the social contract, and it's love. But if we examine, why would you want to tell your parents to get lost? Then you might dive deeper and say, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I need to be personally responsible for something that I'm not doing right, where I feel the need to tell my parents to get lost, but I can't do it because I'm respectful. No, the respect is the surface. Maybe there's something inside. So, controlling the human tendency to backbite, to slander, to gossip, and to be self aware and reflexive about it touches this point. That is my argument for why we shouldn't. I know there are millions of people who say to me, well, gossiping is let's try. Hear me now. Blah blah. Yeah. I don't know what's going on today, but we continue. So I'm just going. La 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 la. All right. I'm just going to quickly start reading because otherwise I won't cover it. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Woe to every slanderer and backbiter who has gathered wealth and counted it. He thinks that his wealth will make him last forever. Nay, verily he will be thrown into the crushing fire. And what will make you know what that crushing fire is? The fire of God kindled, which leaps up over the hearts. Verily it shall be closed upon them, and pillars stretched forth, which means they will be punished in the fire with pillars. That is the chapter. I wanted to read it quickly because something's wrong with my internet today. 2 points. Which leaps up over their hearts. So the fire comes from below, from their feet, and it climbs up through their legs and their bodies, and it comes till here. That's what the that's what the exegesis says about this fire, that it comes all the way here. Imagine a fire like that. But the other thing is verse 6 of the chapter, the fire of God kindled. Now, this is very important because normally in the Quran, when they talk about fire, they talk about the fire of hell. Here, they're talking about the fire of God. And I would take you to a translation from Wikipedia. Yeah, it says uh, Surah Humazah tells how bad mankind can get into loss. Um, and this is why some scholars state that there is no severer description given of hell in the Quran than the description given in this chapter. Many severe and harsh descriptions of hell are mentioned throughout the Quran, many of which we've covered. However, this chapter is especially unique as God says about hell what he has not said in other chapters. Narullah, the fire of God, or the fire of Allah. In other chapters, God says Naru Jahannam, which means fire of hell, but when the fire is attributed to God, it's more than that. It's a fire lit by God himself for those who opposed him. And then this is the last word that talks about the afterlife. That's a crux, matter of crux here. Woe to every slanderer and backbiter. I've discussed that in great detail. There are other parts of the Quran which touch upon it too. Particularly, it's chapter number 49. It touches upon it as well in some detail. It refers to quotations by friends of the Prophet. Narrated by Abu Huraira, it says, the Prophet said, beware of suspicion, for suspicion is the worst of false tales, and do not look for others' faults, and do not do spying on one another, and do not practice nudge, which means to offer a high price for something to allure the customer, and do not be jealous of one another, and do not hate one another, and do not desert one another, and O God's worshippers, be brothers. And it says another one, a person who conveys disagreeable false information from one person to another with the intention of causing harm and enmity between them will not enter paradise. That's also there. And backbiting, and the statement of God, and spy not, neither backbite one another. So these are some footnotes from this Quran. I think I've made somewhat of a clear case of why it's problematic. I tried to make it without the book. I tried to make the case of rationally why it doesn't work. For me, the book is enough of an argument, but I rationalize it too, just to make sense. And so far, it has made sense to me. To gossip or to backbite or to speak ill of others is not beneficial. And I know some people who say, well, I can tell it to their face too if I wanted to. And you say, well, that's not the problem. The problem is you wanting to, and the problem is you feeling that. So we've discussed this before. How you feel is governed by how you let yourself feel. So if I don't give myself room to be angry, and I channel feelings of anger into joy or friendship or food or the gym, sorry, I wouldn't feel angry. I wouldn't explode with anger. So there is a huge body of thought in the Western world that we are slaves to our emotions and we shouldn't suppress anything. We should let it all out and let the volcano destroy each other because they believe that all the emotions that will come out will only be crying and feelings of sorrow. But no, some people can be viciously angry. Some people can be physically violent and abusive. You just saw the case of Amber Heard being violently abusive to ex-husband. Thank God the court ruled in his favor and saved that poor man. He's a fantastic actor. I hope he never goes back to Pirates of the Caribbean, and I hope she faces severe fines and jail time if she can. I have absolutely no tolerance for physical violence. I also said that Will Smith has to go to prison for assaulting someone, for assaulting Chris Rock. He has to. But you know, when you're the part of the elite and when you're part of the celebrity culture, rules apparently don't apply to you because it's America or it's the West. I shouldn't say it's the West because in England, I think they would be more severe or strict regarding the celebrity culture. But then again, Prince Andrew is still roaming free. Yeah, you take away his titles, but he's still roaming free after doing everything that he did. So no, I wouldn't believe that. So regulating yourself and regulating your feelings is important. Try to think of it in those lines. Why should I not gossip? Why should I not feel these things about other people? Well, because they are dangerous to you. Feeling anger or feeling hate towards someone and them not knowing it is drinking the poison and expecting the other to die. it's damaging yourself. This book, like all other religious books, are focused on improving the human being. They're focused on helping you be the best version of yourself. Now, I don't recall the Quran talking about going to the gym, for example. It may. I don't recall it. There are examples where you say, well, it doesn't say that. That's not the argument. The argument is most, if not all, the points and guidances made here are about how we can make our lives better. Okay? So, my advice and my practice so far is to not gossip and to try my best not to say negative things about anyone. Therefore, I don't feel many negative emotions. Even with this Amber Heard thing, I think she's a physical abuser, a domestic abuser, a violent person. She needs to face jail time because that is the law and she needs to face it. But after she's done her due time in prison, if I were making a movie, would I hire her? Absolutely. If I see her on the street and then she's nice to me, would I be nice to her? Absolutely. If I am part of a conference with her, will I treat her with respect and dignity and courtesy? Absolutely. Because I don't hate her. I don't hate any single person because I don't say anything hateful about them. And if that feeling ever emerged, I would question it. Why do you hate this person and not the 8 billion others in the world? That would take you to a swift lesson more about you than about the others. That's why it's best not to gossip. And if you feel negativity towards someone, introspect. Look inwards and think, why do I feel this way about this person? Is there something objectively wrong with that person? Or is there something that I need to look at? And then you'll be much farther ahead than you will be if you just gossip. Thank you so much for your time. I've went over time, but you saw there were glitches today. Have a wonderful Friday, wonderful weekend, and I shall see you next week.